Hello and welcome to the Cutie Art Crusaders, episode 96 for May 6th, 2014. Welcome back, guys, to our third of 6 in our main 6 countdown to episode 100. My name is Rainbow Plasma. I'm the organizer and this week's editor of the podcast, and today I'm joined by...
Burned01, the special guest coordinator of the podcast.
I'm PhotoGuy317, and I'm the media manager of the podcast.
I'm Atmospark. I'm finally back, and I do the questions and the DeviantArts.
Yay, you're back.
Yeah.
There's like a 5-second gap every single week, and that is not latency. Do you just, take a minute to process that it's your turn to talk or something? It's been 96 episodes.
That's what happens. That's exactly what happens.
Oh, for goodness sakes.
It's got to be that jet lag or whatever.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. So you took a trip. Do you want to talk
Jet
about
lag
it?
to rain.
What?
What?
What? Somebody says a brain?
Oh my god.
You want to talk about your trip?
Yes, I was on a plane for a long time.
And then again for another long time.
Huh?
There and back? Man, you really do have brain jet lag, right? Holy cow.
Yeah,
You were on more than one
there
plane.
and back. I was on many planes.
Okay.
I went, as you heard in episode, what was it, 94?
Doesn't
matter.
And 95, yeah.
The first Man 6 episode.
94.
I went to America.
Uh-huh.
And
Cool.
I did stuff.
Okay.
For those who don't know, Silver Rain Clouds is now here with me. She's over there. She's smiling at me and waving at me.
Everyone wave back. Hi, Silver.
Hi, Silver.
We love you.
She's probably in the chat right now, so just wave at her, yay.
Huh?
Everyone say we love you, Silver.
There. Okay.
Okay, thank you for that. And so yeah, now it was 26 hours of flights each way. And yeah, so that was fun.
Ugh.
Yeah, I bet.
Do you have, layovers in China
Now
and
my
stuff,
house is
or-
full of ponies.
That's true.
Yay.
So, yeah. He had a bunch of moving stuff to do. I had moving stuff. I'm now in my new house with all my roommates who are being quite nice and quiet. But actually, it's working out pretty good so far where I am. It's a nice place, and it's a pretty good room. I'm not going to take pictures of it because that's a bit weird. But yeah, it's a nice place.
Quick, show everyone where you live.
Nah, I'm good.
We already saw it, so it's okay.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
Well, I guess that's really all the talking points this week. We're really
Yeah.
dull this week because we want to get right into it, huh? Right in
there. Dull.
What?
What?
Colors and Rainbow Dash. And...
That was,
Rainbow Dash is
that
our
was
theme
the,
this
That was
week.
the loosest connection. Holy cow. If that was a screw, that'd be falling out of the wall. Okay, that is awful. That is awful. So, as I mentioned in the intro, we are currently about halfway through our main 6 countdown to episode 100. So, this week is episode 96, which is part 3 out of 6, which is also our Rainbow Dash episode. And as usual, for all of these episodes, we're inviting some guests on to come and enjoy the festivities with us. And this week, we have none other than Mummified Mustangs. So everyone say hi to him.
Hi, Mummified.
Hi.
Hey guys, it's me. And actually, every week you keep saying, or whenever you talk about me, it's not really Mustangs anymore. I've been kind of transitioning to Thunderbirds or just Mummified.
Thunderbirds, Mustangs.
I didn't
So you're
get
going with the
memo,
car theme,
evidently.
or
I don't know. Yeah. What's up? I'm on the show.
Alright,
how do you
Mummified
mummify a
some
car?
sort of thing.
Yeah.
Mummified cars.
Yeah.
I was thinking Thunderbirds as in TV show.
Fair enough.
That was a good TV show. Anyhow.
Yeah.
So, for those who don't know who you are,
Yeah.
Do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am, the earlier fan of the show, though I don't make it practically ever out to the live streams. I'm always, watching on YouTube. So whenever you guys are like, oh, hey, yeah, wave hi to Silver Rain Clouds, I'm like, oh, I would. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's funny because we do kind of have those. I wouldn't say it's split so much because a lot of people who watch on the live stream also watch on YouTube, but there is that kind of aspect where we have the live stream and the YouTube, and they're two kind of separate entities.
Yeah, and I've been in the live streams a couple of times, and I know what it's like, so I can sit there and imagine oh yeah, they probably had a lot of fun with that, probably just bunch of people scrolling through and saying like, "Oh, Burns talking" or something like that. I don't know. Whatever
That would be a lot. That would be a lot of scrolling. Okay.
whatever the IRC do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you've been around. You've been around pretty early, huh? That's how you found out about the show.
Yeah, I can't remember when it was, but I'm pretty sure, like the earliest memory I have of earliest memory, but like the earliest like fan or like I knew about you, I think was during the fire episode, because I remember the Philomena piece you guys had way back when. So I'm
Cool.
pretty sure I've been watching since like episode 5.
So
Yeah.
fun story about the fire episode, because I happen to just think about it right now. I will distinctly always remember the fire episode because during that episode, I came up with, I think, 3 out of the 4 pieces for that one. It was one of our first episodes. And at the time, I was working night shift at Tim Hortons. I think when we started the podcast, I was working night shift at Tim Hortons. So
Yeah.
I was up. I was up at like, my shift would be 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. and it was awful. But at some point during that, I would get a half an hour break. And the week that we did that one, I believe it was the Thursday, or I guess the Friday morning, technically, before we recorded, I was up at like 3 a.m. and I was on my break, and I remember we were going to do this theme or something. We had one art piece, and I was like, you know what, I should find some more. So I was on my phone at like 3 or 4 in the morning at a Tim Hortons in my uniform, looking up these pony pieces for the podcast that we'll be doing later that day. And yeah, it was. I will always remember that one. It's a very vivid memory to me.
Nice.
Yeah. So you kind of hold a special place in our hearts because you met us at BronyCon.
Yep.
Me and Bern.
Yep.
And you bought us both beers.
Yep.
Which was awesome.
Yep.
So thank you for that.
No worries.
Yeah. In fact, I was actually the one who actually pushed us get you on the show when we were doing our special guests here on this little theme, because you actually one of the fans that stood out to me, for those who don't know, because you were the first fan who actually reached out to me at any convention.
Yeah.
We met at EQLA, and then you actually bought me a beer there, and to this day you're still the only fan who's bought me a beer. And you were the first person to ever give me you were the first person to ever give me actual real tangible piece of fan art that you had drawn and then given it to me personally.
Oh yeah.
And that was it was a sketch of, what is it?
It was the
it was the
first,
4 of us, right?
Yeah,
for the fan
it was
art
the very
episode?
first like hand drawing with undersketch and everything. Way back when, where it's just like, God, what is up with Flutterguy's face? And it's like,
I still got that over there, and you have like notes written on it, like fixed tail, and
no,
because you're gonna vector it.
I still have your thanks for being a fan on my wall that you bought me at EQLA.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
All right. Well,
Oh, the
For the record,
memories.
I still say that about
this
Flutterguy's
has
face.
been quite
Memories,
the love-in.
cool stuff.
We're like the
Yeah.
bestest friends, right?
But geez.
Yay!
Yeah. So now that we've all gotten that out of our systems, you were brought on as part of this main 6 kind of spectacular extraordinaire, and other words like that. So this week, in particular, is something that's close to 2 of our hearts, and the rest of you can just be quiet. This week is the Rainbow Dash theme, which both Bernd and I are like, yeah, about.
Yeah.
'Cause it's kind of like our picks for that. So
And both me and Flutterguy are like, yeah.
your
I
old
like
name
Rainbow
had half
Dash.
of her name, so don't complain.
You'll forever be Pinky Dash in my heart.
Exactly.
I have never changed my username.
Yeah, fair enough.
Huh.
All right, so do we want to go on the art then?
Yes.
Get the
show on the
we're gonna-
road.
Yeah.
Woo! Okay, so our first piece is called Rainbow Splat by none other than Mystic Alpha, who we featured quite a bit because we love his style and his art. And so, like in the past 2 weeks, we're going to turn this over to our special guest. So, Mummified, take it away.
Okay, so whenever you guys show art on the show, I always try to remember, it's like, okay, where does my eye go? And I like consciously think about where my eye goes when I first look at the piece. So like where I look first off is just right at Rainbow Dash's face and seeing the absolute absence of color, and then eventually it like moves into the piece, into the actual like paint on the wall. And I think it's a great concept because it's like what's one of the main things that Rainbow Dash is known for. Okay, flying really fast and being like the loudest color-wise of the main 6. So, you take those two aspects, color and speed, and then if she, hit the wall like one of those Halloween decorations, yeah, if all of her color just went like onto the wall. I really like that it shows movement without, being an actual moving piece. Like, you can tell that, like, yeah, she probably hit that wall, like, really hard. Or, I guess, floor, since there's flowers and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool perspective there, because we kind of associate it with a wall, because it's at, like, a 90-degree angle,
Yeah.
But with the flowers and, like, the grass tell us that she's, like, bam, like, hitting the ground. So it's an interesting kind of double perspective.
Yeah. I totally didn't realize that until just now. I was like, oh, she's hitting a wall and there's flowers on the wall, but that's
just
okay.
like framing of the picture. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
another one.
I was thinking the exact same thing. False perspective.
Yeah. That's another one of those things where it's like, Burn said it was grass, but it doesn't really look like grass. I mean, it's just circles, but you can infer about it being grass just because there's little flowers on it. Be like, okay, what are flowers next to that's green? Well, grass.
Right.
It's almost Looney Tunes-esque, the way that the background is.
Yeah, that makes sense. The kind of like vague circles. I think the entire idea of the piece, like the idea behind it, is the most interesting part. This kind of this idea that Rainbow Dash is like not her personality, but just kind of like her essence, her color. Something that is a very big part of who she is can kind of just come out, and it's not just. It's very evident that it's coming right off of her because, there's the tips of the color still remaining in her hair and she's got blue around her face and things like that. So, I don't know, metaphorically speaking, perhaps what it might, kind of symbolize, but I don't think I've ever seen anything like that where the color comes right off of her. She's hit so fast, she's knocked the color off of herself.
Yeah. I've seen other pieces that take this kind of desaturation approach with Rainbow Dash, where they'll like move the color elsewhere or stuff. And Atmo, you've done a vector of a piece that was basically like that.
I have. I was gonna sort of kind of mention that. I'm a big fan of the whole bleeding colors off Rainbow Dash sort of theme.
So, but like the ones that I've seen and the one that you did, they're kind of, like you said, bleeding colors off, but this is just like a full-on force, like colors are just splashed all over. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you brought up motion mummified because there's right now she's kind of stopped at a standstill because she's hit this wall. But I like the fact that the tail is kind of at a diagonal, so you can kind of tell that the tail was in motion and then it flipped over and stuff. And there's a lot of like different key things, and also the splatter pattern is very key on the whole motion thing.
Yeah.
What's also interesting is like if she was in motion, hit a wall, it would force her tail forwards, right? But if we think about it that it's the actual ground and like we rotate this piece 90 degrees, it's basically she's just hit and she's sitting there and gravity is what's pulling her tail down. If you think about it.
Yeah.
It's so
that too.
Like in theory, sometimes with these poses that kind of convey motion, they're poses that couldn't exist unless they were in motion, and that's what kind of conveys motion. This one's interesting because it's almost kind of like a double. Theoretically, if she's on the ground, this pose could be definitely like attained. It could be a still pose. But even if she was completely still in this pose, it still gives off this unnatural sense to it, and it implies a lot of motion that led up to that point. It's not necessarily the motion that's currently in her posture, but her posture implies a previous motion even.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Especially
like with the tail flying forward like that.
Yeah, and with her wings and stuff, spread the way they are. Yeah. I love Mystic Alpha's style just because there's a lot of like geometric aspects to it. Like if you look at Rainbow Dash's hooves, there's a lot of like these sharp corners and not really much rounding in them. And I don't know, I like that kind of style because it gives it a unique approach, and it's kind of clean. But I don't know. He also does a good job with the hashing and shading and stuff like that.
Well, even the stuff that he dirties up, like the paint or the shading that kind of mars, quote unquote, the perfect tones, they're all done very cleanly. Even the stuff that dirties it up is done very cleanly. So
yeah. Well, it's interesting because there's a kind of a different style that was used with the paint. And I guess it kind of fits with the fact that paint is like very fluid and like, I'm assuming that's paint and not just like dyed rainbow sweat or whatever.
Oh, lovely. Great.
But it's very fluid, very like specular lighting on that and stuff like that, very glossy.
It's not dried yet. It kind of gives off the impression that it's just happened, because if it was dried, then it was like that could have happened and then dried. Yeah, there's definitely like it helps the piece feel more like it's just happening.
Yeah. Well, and it's very toony too, like cartoony. Just because like if you look at any cartoon that represents paint or any fluid substance or whatever like that, they have these like very large specular things to make it like really more 3D or just seem like it's very glossy or something like that. So yeah. So yeah, fantastic piece.
All right, this was actually an interesting thing for us to feature on the show, because this was one of the first times that we've ever had someone else recommend an art piece to us, and it actually made it. As I'm sure many people have figured out by now, our standards have gotten quite high. Ridiculously high, in fact. They're too high, but as long as we still have pieces that can fit our ridiculously high standards, then we're going to continue to feature them. But usually, we ask some people who come on whether or not they're helping us out with the show, like this main 6 countdown thing, or they're guests or something. We always talk to them about like certain pieces that they might want to feature, and a lot of times they bring up ones and we go, okay, well, we've already got these 4 and we think they would be a really good idea, and blah 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 blah. It's really good, but. And this piece was one of the first ones, definitely, where we were looking through the art pieces, and then I think, Bernd, you said, hey, Mummified wants to feature this one, and we all looked at it and went, yeah, okay.
We had totally forgotten about this piece, because I know we've all looked at it before in the past, and we all adore it, because the concept is really cool, and I mean, it's Mystic Alpha, so you can't really go wrong.
Yeah.
That
theory is one of the reasons why we moved Flutterguy, we moved you away from the art and more into other stuff, because we realized that like with the 4 of us, you just get like so much more. It's a much wider spread of things that you can like look at for a certain theme, So, and apparently 5 people is even more. So
the funny thing is, like, Rainbow Dash is my favorite pony, but I didn't have any art off the top of my head where it's like, man, like, that is like my favorite piece that I really need to feature of Rainbow Dash. I've probably already like worked it in.
I think we're pretty, when it comes to art that we feature on the show, I think it's not that we're unbiased about it. It's just that a lot of the times we just naturally are unbiased. It isn't like a choice to be unbiased about it. It just kind of happens where it's all about the quality of the art. It's so not about the actual thing.
I guess like
ponies.
Rainbow Dash is probably my favorite character in the episode, but like artistically speaking, she's not my favorite like pony I have in my DeviantArt favorites.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. I agree. I would definitely agree with you.
Oh, no.
Well, that's not fair though. That's just the choice of everyone else to keep making awesome or whatever.
Yeah. But going back to this piece, just talking some more about Mystic Alpha's style. Because we've already talked a ton about his style, but he does use this hatch shading, which is really cool, and he also does kind of this very hard shading, especially if you look in like Rainbow Dash's wings on the edge closest to us, and also like in her hooves a little bit. But it's interesting in this piece because Mystic Alpha used both hard shading and the cross shading combined to kind of give different levels of shading. Like if you look right in front of her back right hoof or the haunch or whatever, there's kind of a mixture of that, and it's interesting. I like the style.
Yeah.
Quick recap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Mystic. A lot of times when we feature Mystic Alpha here and there over the last little bit, and a lot of the times when we start getting artists that are repeating, we kind of up our standards more and more and more for them because we want to feature as many different artists as possible. But this is a really good example of something where, if we are going to feature an artist again, then it's because it's something that stands out in their gallery. It doesn't just stand out to us, but it also stands out among their other work. And I think this is a piece that definitely stands out for Mystic Alpha among a lot of his other work as being done really well and having a great concept behind it too. A lot of the times, Mystic Alpha has really good art, but sometimes it's not the best concepts. And I think this is a really awesome idea and a really good concept that was brought to life by his great art.
Yeah, definitely. So speaking of artists that we featured a lot of, our next artist we have never featured before. So this next piece is called Breaking Apart by Syntactics.
Lies, we featured this artist before.
I was just looking through the gallery and I was like, I know that's a lie.
This artist has actually made one of my favorite art pieces ever, which is Summer Stay, which we featured in our Saturation episode.
Yup.
Mountains
That's
episode.
Right.
In our Mountains episode.
You're wrong.
And this was a close pick of one of my best pieces of the year, too, when we did that episode.
Yeah.
Anyway, not the piece we're featuring. Going back.
Yes. Breaking Apart by Syntactics. Yeah, I brought this one up a while ago. I don't remember which episode it was, but I brought it up before, and we all seemed to like it, but we just happened to have better pieces of it. But I really enjoy it. So, Mummified, why don't you go ahead again and give us your first impressions?
Well, like always, it's, where's my eye take me? It starts off by grabbing it right with the bright, red eye that she has, and then it kind of moves down into the arm, and you get that really, hard-hitting feeling by, seeing the hard, smash into the ground, and then you have the kind of line trails behind her. It kind of blurs out at the back of her wings as well to help show the motion, but it's really cool. And it's all these things coming together. It's the bright colors in her mane, and then the bright colors of the city, I want to say? Yeah, city behind her. Yeah. And then just great, coloring options, I guess. I don't know, you guys probably explain it better, but it's the fact that it's okay, the ground is one color, she is obviously standing out on its own, and then you have the city that has the white at the bottom. It's the different layers, the front, the back, and then the sky or something like that.
Yeah.
What do you got? Yeah.
Yeah, I could kind of agree with you. I don't think it's quite as obvious as some of the other pieces that we featured that have kind of very obvious layers, but I can definitely see where you're coming from, where there's the ground is separated from her, which is separated from the background very, very cleanly. And I think a lot of that comes with the outlines that Syntactics put. What do you think, Bern? Because I know it's kind of similar a little bit to what Blitzpony does.
In what way?
In the way that the outlines are not black and they're not
the outlines
colored.
on the character,
right.
How there's colors there.
Yeah.
It's because the Rainbow Dash herself and the colors in the background are kind of similar in color. There's some blues and violets there and darker blues. They're similar. So she's it looks like she's highlighting the outside of Rainbow Dash with her complement, which is kind of a light orange, being the complement of blue. And the wings and in her hair and tail and just in certain highlight areas. And Blitzpony does that to a certain extent, sometimes to the extreme, where she just adds colorful highlights because she really enjoys them, because she thinks they're pretty.
Yeah.
Where in this case, the artist is probably doing it for also that reason, and also to make her stand out a bit, pop out from the background a bit.
Yeah.
Actually, what's interesting on the concept of, with the term you were kind of getting at there when you're talking about the front of the picture and the middle and the background is foreground, midground, and background.
That's the one.
Yeah, it's interesting in this piece because it's not as explicitly laid out and said okay, this is foreground and this is background. Obviously, we have the stuff behind the character being a city and the stuff she's stamping on being the foreground, and we can think that. Mm-hmm. But visually, it's not being spelled out for us, being because they're not a different value and they're not an extremely different color between the midground and the background.
Yeah.
What's interesting about it though is it's the background of the piece, and then the foreground is broke by this really bright white highlight thing right behind Rainbow Dash and right behind her hoof.
Yeah.
It looks like a mist to me, or something like a mist, but it's almost like a really bright light. And it's interesting for that, and I really like that about this piece, because you won't see that, I don't know, almost ever.
Yeah.
It's an interesting touch. But why I was saying that it's not it's like specifically laid out is because the color and value of the foreground in what like the bottom left corner of the piece is the exact same kind of color and quality as parts of the city in the background. So they tend to like kind of blend together, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And they almost seem like they're on the same plane. So they're not, completely juxtaposed and creating some kind of visual effect there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like it's a mental disconnection between the foreground and the background based on context as opposed to a visual one. Or like a visual trick using value or using explicit foreground, midground, background. It's more of like we see the context of the piece and we understand one of them's ground and one of them's city. Therefore, we kind of subconsciously push one to the back and pull one forward.
Like a good example is if you kind of like step back from the piece and zoom out, you kind of see the piece in the background for what it is in color, and you have like a dark area in the bottom left, and then it transitions to like a lighter violet, and then you have like yellow on the left, and obviously that whole thing is broken up by this bright white line like right down the middle. But the background itself looks like it's just one kind of solid gradient of color being broken up by that bright highlight of mist or whatever behind like the character.
Mm-hmm.
So
it is definitely an interesting concept to use that kind of very bright white, and it's interesting too because it's a lot harder of a transition on the bottom edge of that than it is on the top edge, like when it goes towards the city. So like if you do zoom out, it does kind of feel like there's separate planes there because you get like this hard cut off edge. But then again, it isn't a different value and the colors are very similar. So it's not like Brian was saying, it's not very explicitly defined, but it's an interesting concept to use that kind of dividing barrier to give you that kind of feel and effect. Something else about this piece again is motion, because there's a lot of it. The whole piece is tilted at a diagonal, and Rainbow Dash is also tilted with the piece a little bit, so you can kind of see some motion there. And like you were mentioning, Mummified, there's motion lines and the tips of her wings are blurred out slightly and stuff like that. And where she's hitting this ground or water or whatever, there's a bunch of like sparks flying and might be water. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. So now that you've said all that, I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, that's water because you can see the reflection. And then my thought on this one was sort of a lake or like a pond or something in front of a city. Like you've got, I would say early morning, you've got the sun rising there on the left, and it's creating this fog come off the lake there, which is why there's that hard, sharp edge down the bottom, because it's coming up off the water, and she's like flying down, hitting the water, and the reflection there in the water. You can see the artist who has syntactics has done really, really well because the way that her colors and her hair and her tail are reflected in the water there match up exactly to the character instead of just random splotches of color.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're wrong.
You can have a look. The yellow matches exactly the yellow in the hair. The red matches the red in the hair. Same with the eye and the tail.
I think you're onto something, but I would argue that it's ice, not water.
It could be ice.
Could be ice.
I mean,
yeah.
I went with water because I'm not used to ice, but
Because it's making very obvious cracks, but but a lot of your points still stay valid. It's just a different state of water, so the reflections still make a lot of sense, and you're still absolutely right on a lot of stuff. I just, based on the cracking of it, it looks very much like ice to me.
yeah.
well, I mean, yeah, that makes sense. It's just my head doesn't automatically go to ice.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about this artist is like this artist style, obviously. Like the color that the artist chooses to use in like the backgrounds and characters is always awesome. It's usually wild and really saturated, and it's always really cool looking. The artist has a really unique sense of color, and also the artist's line work. And so like in the characters, all the characters, like line work and sketch style is always super cool. And I really like Rainbow Dash with like her piercings and like I don't know.
I was looking at that.
Like,
I was
kind
wondering.
of cool look and everything. It's really cool. But point being that how the style in which the artist has created this is kind of a little bit subjective, a little looser, like in how Rainbow Dash is hitting the bottom of the piece. Like I kind of associate with something solid. My first thought when I saw this, because of the cityscape, was concrete or something solid, and then she's hitting this and there's just bright lights and stuff going on, and I attribute that to the style. But now that you do mention water, I can see like those bright white things in the kind of the bottom that look like splashing reflective water or something. And like I see the cracks in that, and I still associate something solid like ice. I don't think it's super explicitly spelt out, but there's lots of artistic things going on, like the reflection and things like coming off of where her hoof's hitting and crack marks that make us all see certain things and like associate it. But it's still like visually, I think it's really cool.
Yeah, definitely.
It does really well.
One final thing about this piece, just to kind of wrap up the whole water ice thing. The reflections, the way that they're done, almost do kind of seem like it's ice, because with water, with it being this still, like the reflection would be a bit clearer normally. But with ice, you kind of get some refracting going on, especially if there's kind of some air frozen in the water, and you get like these bubbles, and it's not as clear a reflection. So I think all that kind of combined does kind of lead towards ice, but it's really interesting, really well done. All right, so we're gonna move on to our next piece, which is called "Free Expression with What I Love" by My Magic Dream.
This is not ice.
No, I love the title. It's a fantastic title. And we've featured My Magic Dream before, and her art is fantastic. So, Momify, do you want to kind of take it away?
Yeah,
what do you
sure.
kind of see in this piece?
I really like it just because of the fact that it seems like almost like a hidden theme in this episode as well, that whenever like artists depict Rainbow Dash, they always they like to accent her colors or make her colors a defining trait in whatever the piece is. And obviously this one has the thick, globby kind of splatter paint to it that has like the giant tail coming up and showing all these colors, kind of like that scene from the Page Master with all the paint like flowing down and hitting Macaulay Culkin or whatever. And then the actual like anatomy of Rainbow Dash is really cool, because as opposed to the last one where they painted or they drew out like each individual like little feather, this one is just the more typical show style with having just the large feathers that just kind of suffice as a wing. And then the overall thinner, I guess you would call it like anatomy, kind of helps give it a little bit more of a lighter look to it. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, well, you brought up a great point, which is that artists oftentimes use Rainbow Dash's hair to kind of mess with it and kind of bring out a lot of her personality, because it is kind of tied with it. I think a lot of people would agree when they say that kind of like vibrant, standout, bold hair colors kind of match a lot of her personality within the show and how she kind of comes across, and it plays more. It plays more to her personality than you would ever initially think. And so a lot of artists like to kind of play with that because it represents her so well. I think if there's any one character that kind of stands out for the show in terms of it, at the very least merchandising and things like that, it's probably her. She's probably the most recognizable one, that's for sure. And a lot of it comes straight from that unique choice of hair color. And I really enjoy the fact that people have kind of taken that concept and worked with it, because when working with rainbow colors, when you're working with so many different, these 6 colors and all of the stuff in between, you can do some really interesting concepts. And this is one of them, the kind of aspect of paint. And Mystic Alpha did that as well. That kind of the color is paint, and My Magic Dream is kind of extended that, I guess, to now where the hair itself is paint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love.
It's the same concept when people do, like Pegasus ponies or unicorns. They do the same thing. They accentuate what makes them them. And I love it when that happens. When people do that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I do love how artists kind of have this freedom to do what they want with Rainbow Dash's hair, especially because there's all these like different colors and stuff like that. And in the show, it's fairly rigid, what color goes where, and they're all very striped and stuff like that. But I love seeing stuff like this piece where it's just like splotches of color and there's a little bit of organization, but besides that, it's just like, running, and I don't know, it's fantastic. And My Magic Dream does a lot of like really cool things with different colors. like I always bring up the Twilight piece that I think it's a she did with like these very bright kind of accented colors and stuff like that. But in this piece, My Magic Dream took Rainbow Dash's hair and tail and mane and stuff like that and just kind of went with it. Really cool.
I like how there's the obvious like liquid estate of her actual tail and hair and whatnot, but her body herself in the actual piece looks almost chalky, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of looks dry and powdery, almost. That's just, something I've noticed.
Yeah, it's kind of like an opposite to
especially in the cutie mark, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it kind of makes the rest of the piece stand out, which is kind of good. Like the focus wants to be on this big flowing mane and stuff like that, and on My Magic Dream's interpretation of Rainbow Dash's hair and flowing and stuff like that. So it's also a very painterly done style. So you get like these, you can kind of see the brush strokes in Rainbow Dash, and it is a very different style from the actual hair. It's interesting too because there's this kind of like liquid at the bottom of the piece that Rainbow Dash's hair seems to be flowing into, or maybe she was like in the water and like pulled out of it, and that's how she
something like that. There's something so there must be something just ingrained in how humans view the world, but we love to see fluids, just kind of like any kind of liquids, just in weird but realistic scenarios. Seeing stuff in like slow motion, whenever you see like people who do slow motion, a lot of the times they're doing like liquid slow motion. Let's throw liquids at things or put liquids together or
think of any commercial ever that has something to do with fruit.
Yeah. Exactly. Like it's
fruit
all about
flowing through water.
it's all about kind of like that slow motion. Like I don't know why we just find it so fascinating. I guess because we always see fluids in motion, but it's always too fast to appreciate. And so this is almost like taking a snapshot of that slow motion and just seeing how unrealistic it is, because we would never see this current state except for just a half a second or a fraction of a second, and then it would be gone and we'd never fully appreciate it. But when we see it here, it's like, whoa. And we know that water can do this, but we would just never be able to like properly see it without it being freeze frame for us here.
Yeah. I don't know why, but yeah, you're right. It's like water and liquids and stuff is so cool at slow motion. Or like if you've ever mixed cornstarch with water and you got like this non-Newtonian fluids and stuff like that. I don't know. It's so interesting and weird.
Yeah. I don't know why.
Something I wanted to point out about this piece is Rainbow Dash's tongue, because it's adorable that she's sticking it out. Her expression is very like, it's very devious and cute at the same time.
Cheeky.
Yeah.
I saw
She
that
got a
as
cheeky face.
I saw that as her with her mouth open, but I could totally see it as a tongue.
Yeah, when you take a closer look at it, she's doing like the tongue thing where you put your tongue out, and I swear to God, it looks like lips, but it's not actually.
Yeah.
I could totally see it as just her having her mouth open, though.
It could be.
Yeah.
I'm actually, just out of curiosity, I'm actually going to go look at other pieces by this artist just to see how the artist draws mouths.
Yeah.
I think it's the tongue thing. To me, it was hard to not look at it and see like lips. That was difficult.
It looks like when My Magic Dream draws mouths, he almost always includes teeth. So yeah, I would say it's totally a correct assumption in that it's probably just her doing a cute tongue thing.
It's interesting though. Yeah.
I also too dig the cute tongue thing.
Yeah.
For the record.
Yeah.
For the record.
Like the cheeky, playful faces.
Yeah, and it's got that aspect of the eyes again, where it's one of the eyes is different from the other one. I think we talked about that last week, and gives her kind of this like lopsided expression, but it's supposed to be cheeky, and it's good. I like the expression.
Yeah. One thing that I really like about this piece is if you look at her far wing, her right wing, there's a bit of color kind of running off of it. And I don't know if like the artist meant for... Actually, I think like this is my interpretation of the backstory of this, is that Rainbow Dash is kind of birthed from this paint where she like was created from this paint, and like yeah, that's my headcanon right now. So in her right wing, she's got a little bit left of this paint, and it's interesting to see how my Magic Dream interpreted these kind of drips of the paint coming off of her wingtip, where you've got like this swirling blue and orange and stuff like that.
You've only ever seen rainbows. I was born from them.
Yeah.
Like Aphrodite, born from the sea foam, she rises full of color and wonder.
Well, I guess
That was a terrible SpongeBob impersonation.
I guess
SpongeBob.
based on the show's canon, her hair color is genetic. Because wasn't her father's hair color similar?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Remember Dad?
Interesting.
Remember Dad.
Anyways.
Yeah. All right, so we are going to move on to our last piece, which is called Flyer Dash by Yakovlev Vad, who is, I believe, a Russian brony.
Was it the Russian in the description?
It could be. Fun fact, though, we was it at BronyCon or Everfree that there was a table set up in the vendor hall, and they had a bunch of like the Russian bronies had given their art to sell. And so it was like a bunch of this stuff. And I don't remember if these pieces were there. I can't remember. But
I don't know if these pieces, they might have been. But that, I forget, I wish I could remember the artist's name. He's an artist who does Romantically Apocalyptic. It's a online web comic, if you've heard of it. If you haven't, I would go Google it and look it up. It's actually one of my favorite web comics. I actually have it in hardback, or not hardback, but I have the actual tangible version right here on my desk. So check that out. And he had a booth at BronyCon. He was also at BabsCon. He goes to a lot of other conventions where he kind of has his own stuff and like sells his webcomic. But then he also does this awesome thing where he gives exposure to Russian bronies who don't have outlets to actually go to like comic conventions or pony conventions in the US, and then sells their art and gives the proceeds to them. And he's a really cool guy. He's really nice and an awesome artist. So, yeah.
So,
Mummified, do you want to kind of tell us what you see in this piece?
Yeah, it kind of is a complete and total left turn from like where all the other stuff we were looking at so far, where it was kind of more artsy and drawn, and you can see the strokes and how it feels. This one is very, I want to say, tight in its like lines and whatnot. It's definitely supposed to be almost a picture of this scenario where Rainbow Dash is sitting on this super speed like futuristic thingamajigger, and it's not so it's not so much a she's obviously not going fast at all in this piece. She's very standstill, but just the fact that it has this futuristic bike with all these intakes and radiators and jets and the emblem at the front of the bike and her like everything else attached to it, it implies speed, I guess, is the key thing that kind of points out. But the main question I have is, if it's supposed to be like super futuristic and like something out of some sci-fi novel, why does it have a regular like radio antenna on the back of it, like a Ford sedan from like nowadays? Do you think they'd like go past like
maybe it's
radio?
like the nostalgia of it. It's the same thing with the Pegasi and the front, the hood ornament. That's not aerodynamically sound, but it's something that probably carried over from past culture.
Exactly.
It's like
what I would, when you were talking just a second ago about the it looks like it's going fast, but it's not going fast. I would call this like a pin-up poster, like what you would see in sort of. That's what it is. It's a pin-up poster. It's the manufacturer of this bike has gone, okay, I want something to be on this, and I want to take a good photo of this that I can put in car magazines.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, Yakovlev, he does a lot of futuristic stuff in general on his DeviantArt. He seems to be really enamored with futuristic concepts, which is really cool because so am I. And it's one of the reasons why I'm drawn to this piece. But it's not just futuristic in terms of the bike itself, but there's also, the background, and there's all the technology on Rainbow Dash herself. There's the things on her rear hooves and her earpiece and her eyepiece and her bodysuit and stuff like that. There's all these things, and it seems to be quite a common theme in Yakovlev's stuff. So I'd be interested to kind of know if that's just something that interests him in particular.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Well, it's interesting.
I really like it.
Yeah, I really appreciate the whole concept art and like this futuristic thing, and I find it really cool too that Yakovlev has kind of taken that futuristic, like very machine clean oriented art, and then he's kind of framed it with nature. So if you look in the upper left and the right, there's kind of these vines and leaves and stuff growing, and it kind of wraps around to where you can see some water right behind Rainbow Dash. It's kind of a cool contrast to the whole different settings and stuff.
Well, that's a really good point, actually, because another theme within all of his stuff is to mix, these complex technologies with a more natural scenario. I don't think I've seen a piece of his where it's entirely futuristic. A lot of the stuff that he has is stuff like very complex armors, but in nature. They'll be in a forest, and something like Celestia will be wearing these complex armors, but it'll be in a forest. So there's always this almost juxtaposition of the man-made technologies and the nature. There's always those two kind of hooked in together.
See, I think you really nailed it with that point, because with this whole concept of it's like a future kind of punk, right? It's this kind of futuristic punk thing that is a style and a concept, and that's the whole concept of this kind of style of everything, is this juxtaposition of like future and past, or high tech and organic, or metal and foliage and like things around it. So the little like cheesy car antenna on the back of this crazy hover bike, and then like the hood ornament, like obviously a hood ornament isn't like aerodynamic, but they're tossbacks to things that like we can relate to or associate with fancy or whatever. And it's that juxtaposition of something like a hood ornament and the little like racing flag tied to the antenna. Also with like whatever. It's like that's the style and that's the theme of it, and it's cool and it's done really well. So.
I think Yakovlev has probably my favorite 3D style to ponies, because it's very, very clean. It's very well shaded. The shading is very smooth and stuff like that. And like it's very like I don't want to say realistic, but it's the shading's believable. Everything is like fits perfectly, and Rainbow Dash looks like not out of place at all
3D.
in these pieces. Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah.
You could say that it's realistic, or, it's tangible, it's believable. Those are all really good terms, where it's like, it's a shading method that we can really associate with something that is, we actually can see in real life.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm always impressed whenever artists can mix in something like the bike or the background with, a fictional character like that, and still make it feel like it's completely in there. A lot of the times you'll get these two things placed together and they'll look out of place and not at all in any of Yakovlev's pieces.
Yeah, Yakovlev and then another artist, Pony Killer X, have a very similar use of light and shadow. That is really, really well done.
Very vivid colors too, not afraid to go to the ends of the color spectrum.
Yeah, I just noticed now that you mention it, the background with the clouds and the whole shift from the warm reds and oranges and yellows on the right to the cooler blues and stuff on the left. It's a really nice juxtaposition.
It's a really nice orange sky.
Yeah, there you go.
Say it's more peach violet. Violet.
Well, there's also the purple and the green there, so there's plenty of plain.
Oh God,
so.
how do we match those words
together?
together?
The entirety of this piece.
Yeah. I really like it. I do dig the clean style too. Like if you look at the bike, anything that's futuristic really has that kind of clean style, or has to have that kind of clean style to make it look believable.
Nothing is dirty in the future.
Yeah.
You mentioned a little when you started out, Mummified.
Yeah.
But this artist has a really like what do you want to say? A really clean sense of line art.
Yeah.
Really clean line work and everything. And that's kind of his style, is this, I don't know, anime, almost illustrated, clean line work on everything that he does. And sometimes you don't see that. You really don't see line work this, clean and precise, where things like do have outlines and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, you can't really get the feeling of that from sort of watching this on the YouTube or on the live stream, so go and have a look at this one in person and blow it up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look at it in full screen.
Blow it up.
Yeah. Take a look at a lot of his art too, because it's fantastic. And we may be featuring more of it in the future.
I'm glad we finally got
Spoilers.
to feature him because we haven't had a big chance to. So
Yeah. All right. So one last thing about this piece, I kind of mentioned it briefly. I really, really, really like the framing in this piece because Rainbow Dash is the focus and the bike is the focus, and you get this kind of dome kind of surrounding her. And so it's both a combination of the organic leaves and the metallic kind of ring and stuff like that. You get this very ovular, circular kind of frame to the piece, and it really just kind of throws your focus right into the center.
Cool.
So, yep. All right. So that is all of the art.
Yay!
Yay. Questions.
Cuteness.
We have our question
questions
master
now?
back. Yay. Yeah.
Questions, yeah, okay. Question.
you excited to be doing
First
him
question
again?
I've got here is marked.
What? You excited to be doing him again?
I guess, yeah.
Wow, such enthusiasm. I'm glad I asked that question.
Much enthusiasm. Such wow.
I was happy to
You
be
distracted
back.
me. I was just
All
about
this.
to read, and then you said something, and it threw me off.
Read that question, man.
Do it.
Okay, so first question I've got here is marked number 2. Which are your favorite drinks and why? Sent in by Bronrig.
All right. So Mummified, you go first.
All right, what was the question one more time?
Which are your favorite drinks?
and why?
And why?
Okay. Favorite drink. All right, well, I'll start. I don't know. It's a mix between either like unsweetened raspberry tea or like a nice, like either a Hefeweizen or an IPA or some kind of like real artsy fartsy beer. Because I ain't digging any of that like $2 Bud stuff. That's not me. I gotta have
Yeah. Hefeweizen's good.
like a real nice
Are
like
good.
local brewer kind of thing.
Cool.
That's my hipsteriness coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the beer or the tea that's
Actually,
hipstery?
I think
It's
it's
both.
kind of both. Yeah, because like tea. No, I don't drink water. I only drink raspberry black tea. And I'm
With-
sorry.
with chai.
I either drink PBR or local, Arizona brew.
Look,
Yeah.
shut up. It's San Pellegrino all the way.
Oh,
No,
but I did try Alaskan brewing company as recommended by Burned, and it was quite delicious.
Ah.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned water because it's funny because out of any single person that I've ever met in the world, I drink the most water out of anyone, and anyone who's stayed around me for any amount of time can probably attest to that. I know, Flutter Guy, staying at your place, I had like what 5-6 glasses of water a day.
Oh yeah.
It just
You're like a water connoisseur too. You rate water like on
oh
a
yeah,
scale
yeah.
of
Like
1
I can
to
always
10.
I can always tell like if it came from like a tap. Like it's not necessarily that I can always tell where it came from, but I can tell you which water is better than other ones.
Yeah.
And things like that. So I don't know when it started, but I guess as like a little kid, I just started drinking a lot of water a day, and now it's kind of like I have to, or else I feel dehydrated. And it's not the same for like pop or anything else. Like I have juices and stuff too. That's really good. I'm not a big pop drinker, but I do drink like a solid 6 glasses of water a day. It's probably one of the reasons why I'm super skinny. Anybody who met me at Everfree Northwest last year can probably attest to that. But yeah, I don't know. That's like I guess that's my go-to drink because it's always the thing that I talk about with people when it comes to drinking stuff because like I like my own beers and stuff like that. But for the most part, I'm always drinking. Like I always drink like I at school I used to bring during the school year I would bring a 1 liter water bottle that I filled up and it would be done by the time my first class was done. So like within 2 hours.
Nice.
And then I'd refill it. So
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy, but hey, it's my thing.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I prefer when I'm having soda, I prefer to drink Moxie, which is a
Gross. Oh, sorry, you were going.
Yeah, it's an old-timey soft drink that like used to be marketed as like a pick me up kind of, maybe even a medicine, I can't remember. It's the official soft drink of Maine, if that means anything to anyone. But it's super hard to get like outside of Maine, so I try and get it whenever I can, and it's
This is
not
the
really
60s,
easy.
man. You gotta drink something else.
All right,
No, it's
Burn, you want
funny.
to step up your game? You want to put your money
When
where
I
your
was-
mouth is?
When I was visiting Ted, I had never heard of it. It's like, what is boxing? He made me try it, and I was
Yeah.
blah. And then like I met his friends, and his friends were giving him crap for drinking it. It was hilarious.
It's true. I don't know. It's definitely an acquired taste. It's like root beer is an acquired taste to like anyone who's foreign to the States because like they've never tried
That's
it before.
true.
Oh yeah, I hate root beer.
And Moxie is like a step further into the unknown, the uncharted territory.
just root.
Like it's a very, very kind of dark taste, which actually I kind of prefer like dark tasting drinks. So like
Yeah, you have
Moxie
dark beers,
and
right? So-
Guinness,
Yeah.
and like Smittix and stuff. I prefer like stouts when it comes to beers.
Nice.
I love the fact that we've all definitely told our life stories, and then we're getting to Burned. This is gonna go badly. Burned, come on, put your money where your mouth is. You were just mocking him for his drink. Go on.
Yeah, I know. It's funny because my dad's from Germany. He hates root beer like with a passion. He won't even let it in our house.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm the same way as Mummified. I'm super hipster. I really
buddy.
like beer, but I guess I don't like beer in a hipster sense. I like it because of my father. Because he was born in Germany and then immigrated here when he was 8 years old. So like he's super, super picky about any kind of beer he drinks. In fact, one time he told me I would never kick you out of my household unless you start drinking Budweiser, then you can move out. And like that was the only time he threatened to like kick me out of the house. Was just like, oh yeah, no, you can find somewhere else to live if you like drinking PBR. That's fine. And so he's like passed on his super high standards of beer to me. So like I'm always super picky about what kind of beer I drink. That's probably my favorite drink too, is going and finding like some kind of really good beer.
What about
Local
like Budvar, like the original Budweiser? Would he kick you out then, or?
I had no clue what that even is.
It's Czech Republic.
Czech Republic beer.
Yeah,
I wouldn't know because I don't know if either of us have had it. Yeah. What is it? The German beer is going to say something. Oh yeah, and in Germany, there's no really such thing as IPA. That just doesn't exist. Like Indian Pale Ale. Germans don't believe in making more bitter and bitter beer. They believe in like aromatic hops, but not like really strong bittering hops. So a lot of Germans really hate IPA. I believe I'm saying that right. When I talked to Germans when I was in Germany and drank their beer, and then talking to my dad. So my dad also hates any kind of IPA. Which doesn't work out well because we live near Oregon.
Yeah.
So it's
yeah,
like
you're like the
everything's an
central-
IPA. I can't go to any store with alcohol and just not have IPA there. And like the whole section is IPA. It's awful. IPA sucks. Gross.
I don't know what these things are.
That's okay. That's okay.
So,
Anyway,
Joel?
Mine? Okay.
Yeah.
So, first, pitted branded cherries dusted with sugar and sprayed with a mixture of Angostura bitters and Lemon Heart 151 rum. Then you set that on fire and the rum will ignite, caramelizing the sugar. Then you put the fire out with gin, rosewater, and lime. And then you drink that.
Why
That
do I
sounds
do a
delicious.
podcast with you guys?
Is that like a flaming mo?
It's a rosewater Ricky.
Nice.
It's a cocktail.
So was that legitimate, or did you just Google the most complicated drink ever?
I'm not going to dignify that with an answer.
I mean,
Smart
it sounds
So yes,
delicious.
you definitely did just Google that.
But, yeah.
I did. I can't choose between... the one I drink most is Sprite.
Okay.
But
But what's your favorite? Is that your
I also
favorite?
drink a lot of ginger beer.
Ginger beer. Okay.
Ginger beer's good.
You don't have to pick an alcoholic
apparently
side
tastes
like,
like soap,
everyone else
according to my
has,
American
but you don't
friend.
have to pick an alcoholic side.
I'm a trendsetter. What can I say?
Well, I didn't spend 20 minutes talking about water, so...
Wow.
Nice.
Ooh.
burn.
Ouch.
Wow.
Aim below
Like,
the
I could
belt.
put that out with water.
Or gin and whatever that water.
No,
special
because
water
that was flammable, so no.
was.
Well,
In Rainbow Plasma's defense, I do actually agree with him because when I lived in Alaska, we didn't live in the city, so pretty much everywhere we lived had like a well, so it was just natural like spring water. So then when I actually moved to a city, I was like, oh god, what is this? I feel like I'm drinking a pool. It was really super weird. It was a huge change. I still
Yeah.
can't
I
help
also-
but taste
I also do
chlorine
drink it.
everywhere I go.
I also will drink a fair amount of water.
Well, I hope everyone enjoyed Atmos Park's last podcast. He's going to be thrown into a pool of water and drowned.
Oof. Ow, dark. All right,
It's okay. It's only the best quality water. I'll make sure of it.
Okay, good.
But yeah.
So I can drink my way out.
So, yeah, exactly. And you will enjoy it too. So we were going to do 2 questions, but we all decided to expend our life stories on drinks. So we'll save that second question for another day. But yeah, we
Sorry,
should
Johann's robot. You'll have to wait.
we should move on to some plug stuff.
Wait. Before we do that, Mummified, did you have any questions you wanted to ask us that we could really quickly answer?
No.
Okay,
I think I'm good.
It's okay.
Okay, plug time.
It's okay. We just figured there's going to be one person who's going to have a burning question. Future guests. Who's going to have a burning question that we'll answer on the show. But that's fine. Don't worry about it. We are actually running up a little bit on time.
Okay.
So I wanted to talk a little bit of the plugs. And because I'm going to talk about the plugs, I'll do them really quickly. Okay? So let's just start with that. We have a DeviantArt, which is cutieartcrusaders.deviantart.com. Where you can go and check out all of our stuff on there. We've got a Gmail, cutieartcrusaders@gmail.com, where you can send in stuff like, for example, the episode 100 answers, which I've listed off 40 times, so you guys should know it by now. We also have Twitter and Facebook, which is at Cutie Art Crusade and facebook.com/Cutie Art Crusaders, respectively. Those are our plugs. We did put out a poll as of last week talking about some social media that we could expand to in the future, and we thank you very much for your responses. You can continue to go vote there, and we will talk about it in the coming weeks, but based on the votes, it looks like we might be getting a Tumblr.
No, I vote for Vine.
So
Vines would be awesome. And
so
we're
gonna talk about it a little bit more, and we're gonna sit down at some point, and we're gonna talk about the future of our plugs and stuff. What we're going forward in social media. So again, you can head over to our DeviantArt page, to our polls, and check that one out and vote for yourself, and also tell us more
Details
in the comments.
and links are in the comments as well. Or not comments, but the description of this YouTube video.
Totes McGoats. All right. Well, I guess that is it for this week, huh?
Yeah.
Time flies.
Before we wrap up, though, Mummified, did you have any place that you wanted to plug?
Well, pretty much. I mean, I'm in a lot of spots, but if you ever want to find me or where else I can go or where else to find me, you can pretty much just go to my DeviantArt page that kind of has links strewn through it of other places that you can find me at. It's at mummifiedmustangs.deviantart.com. You can pretty much find out all the happenings of where this cool cat's hanging out at. Yeah.
Yeah. Go tell him you did a good job on the podcast, because you did.
Yeah.
And that'll be on the screen for you guys if you want to go check him out and talk with him further.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for coming on, by the way. It was great having you here this week.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was really
Isn't
fun.
it like your birthday soon or something?
When does this episode come out? The 6th?
Tuesday.
The 6th.
Yeah.
Tuesday? Yep. Today's my birthday, actually.
When
Happy
it comes out.
birthday!
Happy birthday.
When it comes out, yeah. So on the
Everyone
6th.
wish him a happy birthday in the chat.
Woo!
I think
Yeah.
I remember, because when we
Fine.
talked to you and we said, when do you want to record? You said, definitely this weekend. 100% this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, happy birthday. Thanks for coming on. And that's about it. So,
Cool.
yeah, that's everything for this week. We don't have anything else, right? I'm not thinking of anything on the top of my head.
No, we're good. We're good.
All right, we're good. So next week is another episode in our main 6 countdown. That'll be episode 4 of our main 6 countdown, and that will be Pinkie Pie.
Pinkie Pie!
With another
Yeah.
guest who shall remain a secret.
That's gonna be fun.
So yeah, look forward to Pinkie Pie next week. And other than that, my name is Rainbow Plasma.
I'm Brundle1.
I'm FlutterGuy317.
I'm Atmos Park.
And I'm Mummified Mustangs, I guess.
And we'll see you guys
Yeah.
next week or after this for our spoiler cast.
Yay!
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Hello and welcome to the 23rd spoiler cast done by the Cutie Art Crusaders. My name is Flutterguy317, and today I am joined by Rainbow Plasma,
Hello.
Burned01,
Heyo.
and Atmospark.
What's up?
And today we're going to be spoiler casting MLP Season 4, Episode 24, Equestria Games. Which, I don't know about you guys, but I thought that the Equestria Games would be at the finale.
Was that? Wait, sorry. Was the actual title Equestria Games?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was just a question game.
Yes.
I'm kind of expecting another episode like the one, where's the pets one, where it was we see the thing from the Mystic's perspective, and then the next episode is the Spike's perspective.
Oh, yeah. Maybe.
Kind of expecting a little bit like that because, I don't know, it just didn't seem like an Equestria Games type episode.
See, the thing is, though, the reason why they're not going to do that is because next week is the finale.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's not going to happen. This was
there
the
were
Equestria Games.
There were spoilers in the commercials, which thankfully I don't think you saw, and
I haven't seen either.
we tried to avoid them. But,
We basically what happened was every single time it would cut to commercial. Usually the hub is pretty good about not spoiling. Pretty good is very generous.
Yeah, generally speaking.
But this time, every single time it cut to commercial, it immediately went to, bam, next week, MLP finale, and we went, whoa, and we just threw our headsets off and just like ducked underneath a chair.
Get out of here.
But we did see that it was like
Punch your
finale,
monitor.
so we knew
yeah,
that next
and
week it was
we
the
did see
finale.
that it's probably not going to be linked to this episode.
Yeah.
Spoilers, but you know.
Yeah, I sort of expected it to be like the question games to be like the finale as well, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
okay.
You
Here's
will
the deal.
see.
Here's the deal. We're gonna have to get this out of the way because all of us feel this internally, and I think a lot of people feel the same way. I personally am disappointed with just how they kind of were like, "Here's the Equestria Games," and they're gone. Because like I feel like we've had like 2 seasons of hype over
Yeah.
them, and then this happened, and it was like, all right, well, it's here, it's gone. It's like, oh okay. So
Yeah.
this,
To be honest,
this
wasn't
is,
expecting
the
it
Equestria
to be a
Games is just
Spike
going to be a
episode.
Spike episode then.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Was
mean,
not expecting it to be a Spike episode.
I'm okay with like the actual episode itself. I think they did a fantastic job with it, but like I agree that, you know, Equestria Games there's such a big build up and hype and stuff, and there were episodes like leading up to it, and then it was just like one episode.
I think we're all craving that consistency that was like, or at least myself, I should say personally. Personally, I was really craving the kind of like the gala type lead up, whereas like we'd all been waiting for this thing, and then here's the gala, and it's ridiculous and ties in all the main 6, blah blah blah.
Because they did it so well in season 1, right?
Yeah.
Like that was really good. Well,
Yeah.
it's just I don't know. I think, and I have a theory about this. I think that the whole Equestria Games thing was a lead up to the Olympics. Obviously, you know, like that's not exactly hard to fathom. But I think that they planned out the episodes in such a way that the focus of all of the stuff was during the Winter Olympics or right before the Winter Olympics, so that they could kind of generate similar hype there. And then when they got to this point, like it's now May, and they're like, well, it's been like 4 months since the Winter Olympics are over, so I guess we should wrap up the storyline, you know? So I think that to them, the hype was much more important because around the time of the hype would be when the time of the Winter Olympics was. And I think there's a lot of tie-ins there.
I think that's intense amounts of speculation with no basis.
Sure. That's what this entire podcast
That's what it's like.
is.
Yeah, I know.
Intense amount of speculation about art and then ponies.
Yeah, I mean, like, when they were actually working on these episodes was quite a while ago. So, like, the whole tie-in to the Olympics was done way before the Olympics because, I mean, they already started working on the next season by this point.
But, I mean, we all knew when the Olympics was happening. Like, that's planned. Like, it's not like they sprung it on us. Not like we got to February and they're like, by the way, Olympics is now. And we're all like, whoa, what a surprise. You know, so. But, overall, I just felt like it was like, again, I agree with you when you said the episode overall was like interesting, and it's not. I didn't dislike the episode, but when you look at it as bigger than just the episode, there is a little bit of this like, well, darn, I was kind of looking forward to a little bit more, but there was some stuff in there about the Equestria Games, so I mean, it's not all lost.
Like we saw a couple of events, which was kind of cool. We saw the relay that Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy and Bulk Biceps was in. Still can't get over that name.
Yeah, and they came second, and that was cool. And
Yeah.
I thought that the ice archery was really cool. Like just like the concept of it, it was like a completely different game, but it still totally made sense, and I could see why it would be an Olympic sport. So that was cool.
Yeah. Which was really cool. And then like there's the whole like overarching Spike storyline, because this was a Spike episode. And I really enjoyed it as a Spike episode. Like, Spike isn't really often portrayed as one of the nicest people when he's the focus of the episode, but this kind of showed a different side of him, like a more nervous side. Like, he had his moments where he's like, I can set fire to things with my mind, but like overall it was kind of, I don't know, I related a lot to what Spike was kind of going through.
Yeah.
With the whole like dwelling on things in the past and like not being able to get over it and kind of just being nervous about that whole thing. I don't know. It was interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think not to skip ahead to the end, but I think the lesson overall in the entire episode was actually really mature. Like, surprisingly, I believe it was KP Shadow Squirrel who had a journal about it, and it was brought up that it seemed like the lesson was a really mature lesson, not something that was quite as simple as what we might have seen before. And I would agree with that. That seems to make sense.
Yeah. Because like a lot of times, like if you do something wrong in the past or something embarrassing or something like that, you kind of always think back to that when you do other things like similar to that. Like, for instance, in this episode, Spike couldn't light the torch, and then he also sang a national anthem that he had no clue what the words were.
Oh my God.
In front of like 20,000, 30,000 people.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So and then at the end he's like, I can't do anything because I'm
Because
really
of my
nervous
past failures.
Yeah. And so I think the lesson was definitely very like you said, mature.
It was one of the best lessons I've seen so far from the show. And that's saying a lot, because they don't have bad, some of them are a bit like, well, yeah, duh. But this one was really mature, and it was a good one.
Yeah. So yeah, that scene where Spike is singing the national anthem for Cloudsdale. So cringy.
Cringe.
I mean, like, that right there is like the proper use of the word cringe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is just, I was watching the episode with you, Photo Guy, and I literally have not seen that scene because I couldn't look at it.
Yeah.
I can't handle that kind of stuff. Some people, there's that aspect of like so uncomfortable it's funny. It just doesn't, it just piles on top of me and I can't handle it. So oh my God, and it went on for like 2 minutes.
I know.
It was so painful. Oh my God.
I'm the same way. I can't watch that stuff. I was like turning away from my monitor, just like, this scene won't end. I was like petting my dog and was like, it's okay. He'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, you had to listen to it. I wasn't going to take off my headphones, but at the same time, like, I couldn't, I literally don't know what that scene looks like because I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Couldn't handle
Kathy
it.
Westluck did a really awesome job on that whole scene. I mean, she had to sing that for like 2 minutes.
I
know.
hope they got that out of her in one take just to make it even more awkward.
Yeah, I mean, I ended up sitting through the whole thing. I kind of looked away a little bit because it is like very cringeworthy, but like I feel like they definitely got their point across. Like, they did a fantastic job of portraying that, because like it got those kind of reactions out of you guys and me, and it definitely was like a cringeworthy moment. And,
it was really funny because all the like the faces and the people in the crowd like doing stuff. Like at one point, like a mother covered up her child's ears. Like, shh, it's okay. Like, don't listen.
Yeah. By the way, spoilers for Rainbow Plasma. Who hasn't seen that scene?
I think that was the only thing that I saw through like the cracks in my fingers was that little
Seeing
thing.
all the expressions in the crowd was really good though. People like
Yeah, there was
covering
like
up their face.
What did
and
we count?
stuff.
6 or 7 separate face hoofs in that scene.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And then Pinkie Pie, of course, is like, "Yeah, you nailed it."
Yeah.
I love that. I love that really zoomed out shot when she was freaking out over the medal count, and she's the only one moving, and she's bouncing around in like the
Yeah, it's like a little pink
on
cutout.
like the silhouette.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a couple of good things with her, like the way that the popcorn just like at the beginning a little bit was spilled, and then she just went, forget it, and just tossed the entire thing. The way that she was talking to Twilight, and then it zooms out, and she's just standing on some guy's head, and he's like, okay, well, I guess this is happening to me.
He's just chill with it, too.
Yeah.
Pinky is best hat for Crystal Pony.
So there's a couple good moments from her. I mean, there wasn't that many spread out. Like, it was really a Spike episode, I felt.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a lot of moments from a lot of the other ones. Although Twilight had some interesting things happen. I like the fact that they seem to have like character progression with her, because in the past this episode would have been about the fact that she lit the fire, and then she wouldn't have the guts to tell Spike. Mm-hmm. But I feel like they got that out of the way. I was like, no, I'm definitely telling you, like, I did it, like 100%. You know, and then it went to a different lesson. They kind of showed maturity there and stuff like that.
There was kind of like one scene right around there where it was like, I thought for sure she was just gonna like fib it off to Spike, like, you know, yeah, and
that's
then
what she would have done in the past.
Yeah. I like, we were watching it together, and I physically was like, no, Twilight, and then it was like, oh, okay.
You actually did the right thing. Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting too that like they did show her sitting with the other princesses, and she has her own throne, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
It was really sad, though, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Was it sad to anyone else?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's like, it is kind of royal duties, so I guess she has to do it or whatever. I saw a comic that was like, it was Twilight and Princess Celestia and Princess Cadence. Actually, it might have been just like on Reddit, a thread with the emotes. And Twilight was basically like, I really want to sit with my friends or whatever. And then like Princess Celestia and Cadence and Luna are like, what do you think about us? We want to too, but like...
Yeah, are we your friends?
No.
Why would you sit with those plebeians?
Yeah.
I mean, like, there is that one aspect, but I don't know. I just felt like... And there was like one shot where it showed like all of them except for her, and then it zoomed back to her, and it was like, oh.
Yeah.
You did that on purpose.
Yeah. I don't know. It was interesting though, because like, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, they don't show Twilight as a princess enough, and so this was definitely, it was kind of an unspoken thing that, you know,
those people aren't allowed to talk to me.
Yeah.
There's also a great little very subtle thing, but I think a lot of people caught it. At some point, Twilight asks Spike, like, what can you really do? And he said, well, I mean, like, unless you can turn back time, blah, 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 blah. And then, like, Twilight takes a step back, and she, like, ponders a bit.
Yeah, she's like,
And then the other people, like, step in.
Yeah.
And they're just like,
Cadence
well,
was like, wait, whoa, no.
But it's so funny, because she definitely was like, well.
Yeah.
I did miss that, yeah.
It was great. It was very subtle. It was all in the facial expression. She didn't roll her eyes, but she did that thing where she looked up like she was thinking about something.
Yeah.
So it was really subtle but great.
Yeah. I mean, overall, like, the events of the episode, like the archery and the relay weren't really that long, but they were kind of entertaining as well. The relay was nice because it ended with Rainbow Dash and Spitfire just kind of like being best friends and stuff, and
not
like
being jerks like they were at Rainbow Falls.
Yeah, it was like people matured. Wow.
Oh, but she didn't have to speak. That's one thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Rainbow Dash was a bit of a jerk right at the start of the episode. She was like, yeah, except for Fluttershy, me, and Bulk Biceps, we're not going to win gold.
But I like
the rest of you guys, go ahead.
I like the fact that, well, I mean, she was very blunt about it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I love the fact that, like, everyone else is just like, oh, no, yeah, she's definitely right. Like, there's not like, wow, that was really blunt. They were all like, no, you're absolutely 100% right. We are going to lose.
Yeah. Yeah, but I
funny.
did like the fact that she was like, it's not really about winning, it's about giving it your all and being amazing.
Changeling.
So, yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. You know, honestly, like, overall, just speaking from all the stuff that happened in the episode, how, like, the pacing of it and everything, like, it was a good episode, but it's just shadowed by these expectations that were set. You know? And I mean, people can say, well, you have to ignore that, but you can't. because like it was a big hype up, you know, and it wasn't like they necessarily let us down by having some sort of horrible thing. It was like in that kind of like level of like meh, you know. It wasn't so bad that we can be outraged about it, but we were kind of expecting better in terms of the Equestria games. And again, like if you separate the two, the episode itself was really good.
Well, that's why I think like the pacing for the episode itself was good, but I feel like if it had been a two-parter or something like that with the season finale, like we would have gotten to see more of the actual events and stuff, which I think we were kind of expecting.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the episode, like as a Spike episode and as like just a standalone episode, it was really well put together, and like that the pacing was good and the character development was good and the lesson was good and like that. But like I don't know, it kind of left me wanting to see more.
They were building up to more than just an episode. That's the thing. That's the big thing.
Well, I'm curious now to see what next week is going to be, because like this had a bunch of build up and so.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, to be brutally honest, we don't really know anything about it. You know, so for all I know, they could have a 2-part episode that starts immediately as this one ended. You know, and it could be semi-involved, and who knows, there could be a lot more stuff. Based on what I've seen and what I can guess about it, you know, then it's probably not. Finally, I'd like to point out that I was once again completely right in predicting that Twilight's Key is going to come next week.
Yep.
And I'm going to be smug about this for the next 4 years because I totally predicted all of this.
Yeah, you did.
Woo! And I will always call that because I totally did it first.
Uh-huh. You were like, oh, that's the key. And I'm
Did
like,
Yep. Totally called it. Called it all. I'm the best. I'm the very best.
Uh-huh. Around. Yeah. So at the very end, we get the ice archery ponies, and I guess one of the ponies gets really nervous and takes an arrow and shoots it to the sky, and a cloud gets hit and decides that it's going to turn into this big icicle asteroid bomb thing. And it's about to fall and crush some ponies, which is kind of dark, but, you know.
Oh, that brings up a really good point, though, because what we were talking about was, you know, they have that magical force field thing that prevents all the magic, which is genius. Great writing. Great.
Yeah.
Good.
Very cool. I was thinking that it was very cool.
Continuity. Fantastic. But we were looking at it, and we were like, why didn't, like, somebody do, like, what, it wasn't, like, let's say, like, the princesses or something, didn't they? But it would make sense that they would technically have most of their magic stripped as well. Because technically they could be biased because they live in a city that's competing.
Yeah.
So.
But the princesses, I don't know. Like, I wonder if we'll ever see Celestia do anything.
Oh, well, I actually saw a picture and, like, she was heading up towards the ice thing as it was falling, like, to, I don't know, like, push it upwards maybe? I don't know.
the way that I kind of, the impression that I got from that scene is that Spike just happened to be the one who reacted the quickest. You know, like there was Twilight like lunging forward, and I imagine that everyone else was kind of doing the same thing. And then when that happened, you know, when something like that happens, where someone yells out and there's him like bouncing off of things, I'm sure it'll cause you to like stop for a second and be like, what?
Yeah.
And then by the time you do that, everything is kind of happening. So I think he was just, I don't think this is the situation where it's like, oh no, something is going to crash, we can't do anything to save it. You know, I think it was just kind of like quick reaction times.
I don't know, like, because I personally think that the princesses didn't have their magic abilities, and I think that, like, well, all of the Pegasi were already kind of trying to push up on it to prevent it from crashing, and I don't know. I would like to think that, you know, Spike saved everyone, and
I would like
again.
to think I would like to think that they were just sitting on their thrones like Julius Caesar, like being fed grapes and cake. Send out the Pegasi! Stop the meteor! It's blocking the sun! Send it towards the poor neighborhoods!
Yeah, I can totally see that.
A funny point that I was gonna make was, like, when I was watching this episode, I wasn't expecting something like epic to happen. All of a sudden, Spike saved the day. I was expecting the moral to be something different, or I don't know what I was expecting. But I felt like I was watching an Adventure Time episode where the episode just ended in some ridiculous random way that I didn't expect at all. where all of a sudden everyone's gonna die and get crushed, and then Spike somehow miraculously saves the day again. It was interesting, but
yeah, I can kind of see where you're coming from with that Adventure Time feel, because it was kind of a little bit random and like a little bit out there.
And all of a sudden something extremely epic happens, and like the day is saved.
Yeah.
Meh.
I don't know. Like
That's the only 2 cents I had in this whole episode.
It's just funny. It's just funny to me because you're like, it does this and that, and it's really interesting. Meh. I'm getting mixed messages here. Did you like it or did you not like it?
The episode was enjoyable. I don't know, it was a good episode.
But no, I mean the ending.
The ending?
Was it just weird?
I liked the moral.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
This is like pulling teeth, so let's move on.
I have no opinion, man.
Yeah. I mean, it was a very enjoyable episode, like we said. It's just that, like, I don't know, we were kind of expecting something different for the Equestria Games, but
Can't
overall,
hype people up unless you're gonna give the payoff. You can't do that.
Overall, though, I enjoyed it. So
Fair enough.
So we do have to wrap up because we are short on time. But thank you guys for watching, and join us next week when we spoiler cast the season finale of season 4, and hopefully we'll be back again for season 5 next year. Who knows? But thank you guys for watching again. My name is FlutterGuy317.
Rainbow Plasma.
Burned01.
Admiral Spark.
And we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
If that was a screw, that'd be falling out of the wall. Okay, that is awful. That is awful. So, as I mentioned in the intro, we are currently about halfway through our main 6 countdown to episode 100. So, this week is episode 96, which is part 3 out of 6, which is also our Rainbow Dash episode. And as usual, for all of these episodes, we're inviting some guests on to come and enjoy the festivities with us. And this week, we have none other than Mummified Mustangs. So everyone say hi to him.
Hey.
Hi, Mummified.
Hi.
Hey guys, it's me. And actually, like every week you keep saying, or like whenever you talk about me, it's not really Mustangs anymore. I've been kind of transitioning to Thunderbirds or just Mummified.
Thunderbirds, Mustangs.
You know,
I didn't
So you're
get
going with the
memo,
car theme,
evidently.
or
I don't know. Yeah. What's up? I'm on the show.
How do you
Mummified
mummify a
some
car?
sort of thing.
Yeah.
Mummified cars.
Yeah.
I was thinking Thunderbirds as in TV show.
Fair enough.
That was a good TV show. Anyhow.
Yeah.
So, for those who don't know who you are,
Yeah.
Do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am, the earlier fan of the show, though I don't make it practically ever out to the live streams. I'm always, watching on YouTube. So whenever you guys are like, oh, hey, yeah, wave hi to Silver Rain Clouds, I'm like, oh, I would. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we do kind of have those. I wouldn't say it's split so much. Hello and welcome to the Cutie Art Crusaders, episode 96 for May 6th, 2014. Welcome back, guys, to our third of 6 in our main 6 countdown to episode 100. My name is Rainbow Plasma. I'm the organizer and this week's editor of the podcast, and today I'm joined by...
Burned01, the special guest coordinator of the podcast.
I'm FlutterGuy317, and I'm the media manager of the podcast.
I'm Atmospark. I'm finally back, and I do the questions and the DeviantArts.
Yay, you're back.
Yay.
There's like a 5-second gap every single week, and that is not latency. Do you just, take a minute to process that it's your turn to talk or something? It's been 96 episodes.
That's what happens. That's exactly what happens.
Oh, for goodness sakes.
It's got to be that jet lag or whatever.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. So you took a trip. Do you want to talk
Jet
about
lag
it?
during rain.
What?
What?
What? Somebody says a brain?
Oh my god.
You want to talk about your
yes,
trip?
I was on a plane for a long time.
And then again for another long time.
Huh?
there and back. Man, you really do have like brain jet lag, right? Holy cow!
Yeah,
You were on more than one
there
plane.
and back. I was on.
Much because a lot of people who watch on the live stream also watch on YouTube, but there is that kind of aspect where we have the live stream and the YouTube, and they're two kind of separate entities.
Yeah, and I've been in the live streams like a couple of times, and I know what it's like, so I can sit there and imagine like, oh yeah, they probably had a lot of fun with that, like probably just a bunch of people scrolling through and saying like, oh, Burns talking or something like that. I don't know. Whatever
That would be a
the
lot. That'd be a lot of scrolling. Okay.
whatever the IRC do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you've been around. You've been around pretty early, huh? That's how you found out about the show.
Yeah, I can't remember when it was, but I'm pretty sure, like the earliest memory I have of earliest memory, but like the earliest like fan or like I knew about you, I think was during the fire episode because I remember the Philomena piece you guys had way back when. So I'm
Cool.
pretty sure I've been watching since like episode 5.
So
Yeah.
fun story about the fire episode because I happen to just think about it right now. I will distinctly always remember the fire episode because during that episode, I came up with, I think, 3 out of the 4 pieces for that one. It was one of our first episodes. And at the time, I was working night shift at Tim Hortons. I think when we started the podcast, I was working night shift at Tim Hortons. So
Yeah.
I was up. I was up at like, my shift would be 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. and it was awful. But at some point during that, I would get a half an hour break. And the week that we did that one, I believe it was the Thursday, or I guess the Friday morning, technically, before we recorded, I was up at like 3 a.m. and I was on my break. And I remember we were going to do this theme.
Many planes.
Okay.
I went, as you heard in episode, what was it, 94?
Doesn't matter.
And 95, yeah.
The first Man 6 episode.
94.
I went to America.
Uh-huh.
And
The streets are
I
paved in
did
cheese.
stuff.
Okay.
For those who don't know, Silver Rain Clouds is now here with me. She's over there. She's smiling at me and waving at me.
Everyone wave back. Hi, Silver.
Hi, Silver.
We love you.
She's probably in the chat right now, so just wave at her, yay.
Huh?
Everyone say we love you, Silver.
There. Okay.
Okay, thank you for that. And so yeah, now it was like 26 hours of flights each way. And yeah, so that was fun.
Ugh.
Yeah, I bet.
Do you have like layovers in China?
Now
and
my
stuff,
house is
or-
full of ponies.
Yay.
So yeah, he had a bunch of moving stuff to do. I had moving stuff. I'm now in my new house with all my roommates who are being quite nice and quiet. But actually, it's working out pretty good so far. Where I am, it's a nice place and it's a pretty good room. I'm not going to take pictures of it because that's a bit weird. But yeah, it's a nice place.
Quick, show everyone where you live.
Nah, I'm good.
We already saw it, so it's okay.
Yeah, we did.
All right.
So,
Well, I guess that's really all the talking points this week. We're really
Yeah.
dull this week because we want to get right into it, huh? Right in
there. Dull. His
What?
Colors and Rainbow Dash. And...
That was
Rainbow Dash is
that
our
was
theme
the,
this
That was
week.
the loosest connection. Holy cow! And then we had one art piece, and I was like, you know what? I should find some more. So I was on my phone at like 3 or 4 in the morning at a Tim Hortons in my uniform, looking up these pony pieces for the podcast that we'll be doing later that day. And yeah, it was. I will always remember that one. It's a very vivid memory to me.
Nice.
Yeah. So you kind of hold a special place in our hearts
Aw.
because you met us at BronyCon.
Yep.
Me and Bern.
Yep.
And you bought us both beers.
Yep.
Which was awesome.
Yep.
So thank you for that.
No worries.
Yeah. In fact, I was actually the one who actually pushed to get you on the show when we were doing our special guests here on this little theme, because you actually one of the fans that stood out to me, for those who don't know, because you were the first fan who actually reached out to me at any convention.
Yeah.
We met at EQLA, and then you actually bought me a beer there, and to this day, you're still the only fan who's bought me a beer. And you were the
Nice,
first person to
subtle
ever
little
give
thing
me...
there.
Yeah.
You were the first person to ever give me actual, real, tangible piece of fan art that you had drawn and then given it to me personally.
Oh yeah.
And that was it was a sketch of, what is it?
It was the
It was the
first,
4 of us, right?
Yeah,
For the fan
it was
art
the very
episode?
first hand drawing with undersketch and everything. way back when, where it's just like, God, what is up with Flutterguy's face? And it's like,
I still got that over there, and you have like notes written on it, like fixed tail, and because you're gonna vector it.
I still have your thanks for being a fan on my wall that you bought me at EQLA.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
All right, well.
Oh, the memories.